Yankees tonight.
7:30.
Oh my God. I've been unbelievable. That was crazy. I didn't say anything. I'm just saying. Cardinals Raiders. Yeah. It's a tremendous athlete.
Oh, we're ready. We have a quorum.
Tremendous ball.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
And for Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Borough of Saraville Planning Board meeting of September 21st, 2022. Beth, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, Chairman, it has.
Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Allegra, Mr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Blamar,
Here.
Mr. Mueller, Councilman Onoha, Ms. Patel, Ms. Pulowski, Mr. Spazzato, Chairman Davis,
Here.
Mr. Cornell,
Here.
Mr. Alfieri,
Here.
Mr. Fowler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Memorialization of resolution.
Yes, this evening we have Main Street South 1 and 2 LLC Major Site Plan, Block 249, Lot 1, Block 250, Lot 1, and Block 251, Lot 1.
Need a motion? Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Blamar.
Yes.
Mr. Mueller.
Yes.
And Chairman Davis.
Yes.
Okay.
Accepted the minutes from the August 17th, 2022 meeting. Did everyone have an opportunity to review? Second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Thank
Okay.
you. Communication and agenda,
None this evening.
the site plan and subdivision.
First one this evening is APE New Jersey LLC Site Plan 401 Hartle Street, Saraville, New Jersey, 08872, Block 59.01, Lot 106.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, board professionals, and public gathered. My name is Kenneth Pape. I'm an attorney with Heilbrunn Pape. I have the responsibility and the privilege of representing your applicant, APE New Jersey LLC. This is an application for an amended site plan approval for an existing facility on Hartle. And before I begin the presentation, may I ask if my notices have been received and are they in order?
Yes, Mr. Pape, I've reviewed your notice package and everything seems to be in order.
Thank you very much. This is an application to add an additional building to the site. The additional building is referred to as a paint booth. Our clients have operated their business on this property for almost 20 years. They have had a paint booth facility inside their main building that had been inspected a number of times and there was not an issue. Recently, it was inspected and found to be inconsistent with the municipal ordinances, and there was a direction that the paint booth operation in the main building could not continue. So our clients have made a request to this board to build a freestanding building adjacent to the main building dedicated to the paint booth activity. You'll hear there's no change in the hours of operation. There's no change in the number of employees. And there's no change in the hours of operation. In fact, there's no change to what they do except that they stopped painting when they were told that the facility they had was not consistent with the ordinances. So we're just, the purpose of this is to request that it be permitted in a separate building. The presentation will be made by two professionals. Andrew French is a principal at French and Perillo, and he has prepared the plans. It's worth noting that we have been before this board with this applicant for modifications to their site at least 3 times. I think I've done it 4 since the very beginning, not sure, but, and Mr. French has been the design engineer on the last 3. And Mr. French will present the site plan and its elements. And then Mr. James Higgins is a professional planner. And because we're asking for variance relief associated with the application, he'll present that testimony. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'll begin presenting to you Mr. Drew French. We'll have his credentials placed on the record, have him sworn, and we'll go into his substantive testimony.
Hey, Mr. French, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, Andrew French, French.
Would you mind providing your qualifications for the board?
Certainly. I'm a professional licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey. I provided testimony in front of this board on numerous occasions, as well as many other boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
License in good standing today.
Yes, it is.
Then I would ask Mr. Chair that you accept Mr. French and allow him to so testify. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
If you would take a few moments to introduce the property, perhaps identify its address, its location, a simple description of that which surrounds the site, and then if you could take us to the site plan.
Certainly. So the project is located on Hartle Street. It's actually located on the north side of Hartle Street. It's in the special economic development zone. It's approximately 2.1 acres. The use has been there since 2004. What we're proposing, the surrounding properties, let me just back up a step. So we front Hartle Street on the southern portion. On both the east and west side of the property is similar commercial industrial uses. And just on the north side is the Raritan River Railroad right away. It's an active freight line that's located there. What the applicant is proposing is a paint booth. It's going to be a paint booth and then enclosed in a building. We have it situated on the north western portion of the site, aligned behind the existing building. The paint booth itself is 32 feet by 53 feet, 27 feet high. The building is situated 5 feet from the existing building, which is the one variance that we're seeking. An accessory structure needs to be set 10 feet from an existing building. But I'd like to point out that the rear setback for an accessory building is 20 feet. We have 27 feet. So we could, in theory, make the building the proper setback from the existing building and comply fully conforming with the bulk standards in the zone. But we thought it was better if we actually move the building further from the rear property line and closer to the existing building to align it there, better situated on the property, and further from the rear property line gives us the opportunity to put a double row of evergreen trees here as a buffer in the back. The other aspect that is being proposed is storage racks. So the storage racks are 12 foot high. They're open storage racks along the rear portion of the site. And then in the front portion, they're 8 foot high storage racks. Now, these are open racks that are made from metal, but there's a lot of miscellaneous small storage that occurs in the outdoor storage area that was previously approved. So to better organize that area, these storage racks allow them to place the smaller elements up off of the ground and gives them more room to operate into the storage area itself.
I think there's one other modification. There was a fence line that our clients had asked if we could modify in a modest way. If you could identify that for the board.
Yes, certainly. So as part of the previous application, there was an 8 foot high vinyl fence along Hartle Street that was approved and actually installed along the front portion of the property to screen out the storage area to the rear. There was also a gate that was approved and the fence that ran along the eastern property line back up to the proposed retaining wall that was previously approved. And then there's a chain link fence that surrounds the property. So as part of this application, the applicant wishes to actually install a gate on the eastern driveway, a 20-foot wide chain link fence with privacy slats gate, and then a 25-foot wide gate on the main access driveway that's in the center of the property. That would also be chain link fence with privacy slats. But also he's looking to install a 6-foot high vinyl fence along the frontage between the existing parking area and Hartle Street. This is proposed to better screen out the storage area from Hartle Street itself. And as part of the operation, it makes it more suitable for them. The driveway on the eastern side, those gates will be closed almost all the time. The only time they're going to be open if they have to bring something in and out of there, but essentially they're going to be closed gates. That's the secondary access in, and they're not going to be operating those gates. The main gate, though, would be open during regular business hours because that's how they come in, bring the equipment, and actually, the employees come in and out of that gate. And then at the end of the day, they'll be closed up for security purposes and to screen out from Hartle Street.
The client shared with me a single addition to those comments. They have a dedicated lunch hour, and during the dedicated lunch hour, all the gates would be locked so that there's no access to the site while the workers are taking their break. All of this fencing is, it's my understanding, if you could confirm, is to create a security, keeping the public from the site, and also to create a visual buffer so that the public is not observing all that's taking place inside the industrial site.
Yes, that is correct.
Is there anything else that we should be presenting to the board as physical elements of the plan before we introduce Mr. Higgins?
So one other element that is physical, part of the paint booth structure, the location that's being installed is a flat area that's currently stone now and used for storage. But we are introducing an underground detention stormwater management system there to mitigate any impact from any additional runoff that is incorporated. I know in Jay's letter, he had mentioned 2 comments, and we certainly agree to comply with those comments. But that is another element that we were proposing as part of this application.
Mr. Chair and board members, I have nothing further of Mr. French. If you or your professionals have any examination of him, he is available to you. Do you wish to examine him at this time or at the conclusion of Mr.? No.
French.
Yes.
On the plans, it calls out like a 6-foot high vinyl fence on the east side in the front, and then also on the west side in the front. I think the fence on the east side that exists is 8 feet high.
That is correct.
Fence that's going to be on the west side of the lot is going to be 6-foot high vinyl fence.
On the west side, it's going to be a 6-foot high vinyl fence in front of the parking area on the west side, yes. As it comes to the gate would be a chain link fence with privacy slats. Then there's a small little section on the east side of the driveway that will be 6 foot tying into the 8-foot high existing vinyl fence.
I think the plan indicated 6-foot high fence on the east side also, but that's 8 feet.
That is correct. That existing fence on the east side is 8 foot high, which was previously approved by this board. Yes, and installed.
It's worth noting that this business, now 18 years part of the borough of Sayreville, is vibrant, successful, and growing. And all that we bring before you are growing pains for them to stay here. They don't want to go anywhere. So with permission.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, there were some comments in my report that had to do with existing conditions that require design waivers. You're not changing those, but maybe you just want to put that on the record, what those are. And also one other comment I don't think you addressed had to do with the site distance with the fencing, just a concern about proximity to the front property line, whether there's any site concerns with that layout?
Yes, so I'll answer that last one first. So the main driveway here again, with the gates being open during operation, as they're exiting the driveway, the site distance is clear. Hartle Street is not a heavily trafficked driveway. They'll come to a stop condition here. And when they're going to make their right turn out, they're looking left, and it is clear visible site distance for that. So the other ones were existing waivers that were previously approved.
I could read them into the record
okay.
if you would like.
That'd be
So-
great, thank you.
So the last resolution memorialized by this board was in 2019. And that resolution and findings of fact spoke to, and that resolution under the word found, FOUND, spoke to waiver relief that the board granted. The board granted waiver relief from the requirement of sidewalks around the parking area. No change to that. The board granted a waiver of relief from all parking and loading areas to be surfaced with bituminous material. There's no change to that. And the board granted a waiver for curbing around all parking and loading areas, and there is no change to that. I believe those are the existing waivers that we ask continue without revision.
There also is front yard setback parking, which is not changing as well.
That is correct.
It's just-
And yep,
Variance. Yeah, or waiver?
yeah. So previously that was approved to allow the parking to be in the front yard. And we're not proposing any new parking. They're all existing conditions.
No new parking demand either.
Thank you.
Chairman, just clarify a couple of things that were in my report, what Mr. French is up. I just asked about fire lanes being established by the Bureau of Fire Prevention so that the storage area, this kind of designated area, this is where storage is, this is where open lanes are going to be available in case emergency vehicles need to get in. That's something you can indicate on the plan.
Yeah, we can have indicated on the plan, Michael. So the main access drive that comes in as it goes right to the back, this is kept open. This is how they come in and out of the site currently. I would point out that the fire official does come out to this very frequently site and, you know, so he's aware of the situation and.
Yeah.
I was looking at an aerial photo and it's kind of a mix of where storage was happening. So it wasn't a real clear lane, it appeared to me. So as long as that's going to be the case, that'll be fine. And then I just asked how they handled recyclables and trash. Is there an area where it's collected and then picked up and disposed of?
So your regular recycling from the office personnel.
Right, and the
is
trash
very-
area, which is required that you have one. I don't,
Yeah, it's
See,
very
so-
minimal, but I believe they separate the recycling and then it's picked up by a private carrier.
It is private carrier. There's no dedicated receptacle for it. It's a couple of cans.
and the last thing, you know, the growing pains that you had talked about, is making, causing them to grow into the front yard area. And then the whole, if you go up and down Harder Street, it's a pretty nice industrial park. So you're kind of moving into the areas that most other sites have nicely landscaped. So I'd asked in one of my comments that you supplement the landscaping, you know, on the fence side of the project, just to dress it up a little bit because you're losing your more green area. Just something appropriate. I mean, there are utility wires above the sites. I won't really plant any trees right underneath there, but maybe some mix of some evergreens, some other shrubs that you could fit in on the west side and the east side on the frontage. I know it's a little tight on the west side.
Mr. Fowler, if, to the first point, if we were to state as a condition of any approval granted that we would meet with the fire marshal to make certain that we have the fire lanes striped to his satisfaction. And for the second, if we were to agree to work either, I think it would be a combination of working with your office and Mr. Cornell's to establish an acceptable landscape plan.
That's exactly what I would like to see.
If those are acceptable conditions to
Yes.
you and to the board, then those are offered by the applicant.
That's all, Mr. Chairman, for me.
Thank you.
One more comment. It had to do with the encroachment into that buffer in the back of the property. I don't know if your planner is going to talk about the elevation differences and
Oh, we can do,
or if your engineer can.
did you bring the cross section?
yes.
Okay. We just so happen to have a cross section.
So I'll pull up the cross section, but first, just the landscape buffer in the SED zone, when you're directly abutting from a non-residential use, which we are, to a residential zone, requires a 50-foot buffer and then 5 feet for every 10 feet height of the building. So there's a 65-foot landscape buffer required along the rear portion of the site. So when I'm saying orientated to the board, just north of us, the property that directly abuts us is the existing railroad. That's an active railroad. It's a non-residential use. It just happens to be in the R7 zone because when they drew the zoning map, they had drawn the zoning line at that location rather than 100 feet north of that on the other side of the railroad. So because of that specific situation, we're required to have this landscaping buffer. So it's kind of a technicality. Just want to put that on the record. But so the paint booth is located on the north side in a flat area, and we're proposing these double row of evergreen trees. So this next exhibit,
I think this one, the first one was part of materials that were filed, but this one, we're going to need to give a label before you begin speaking.
actually, it is part of the site plans that were submitted.
This
This is sheet 9 of 9. It's called profile sheet. It was part of the site plan.
Thank you. Stand corrected.
Yes.
If you could tell us what we're looking at.
So what happens is this is an aerial picture here on the bottom. So it's actually, this is the existing building. Hartle Street is over here, south of here. This is the location is where the paint booth would be constructed. And then as we travel towards the railroad, you can see there's a considerable amount of wooded area with trees. If you look closely, you can see the existing railroad in the center. And then further north is another heavily wooded area. That wooded area also has a berm that's associated with it. And then as you get further along, you see on the right side here is where the residential buildings are located. So from our paint booth, it's 27 feet to the property line. So it shows it up in this profile. Paint booth, almost 28 feet to our property line. You have 100 foot of the existing railroad right away, and then another 50 feet to the first existing residential structure. But so we're proposing to add double row of evergreen trees on our property. Then the slope actually extends up to the railroad up to an elevation of 32, which is approximately 13 feet higher than our finished grade. Then as you go further away to the north towards the residential, there's actually another berm goes up. It goes up another 10 feet where that, the wooded area is located, and then it goes back down to where the residential is located. So there's a considerable distance and, activity between our proposed paint booth and that first residential property.
All these trees that we're staring at in this aerial photograph, are we taking any of those trees down?
No, we are not.
So what the board members are looking at is going to remain the additional plantings. They are in addition to that which is there now.
That is correct. Yes,
And the plantings that are proposed are 4-season plantings.
that is correct.
Does that address the question, Mr. Cornell?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Okay. Then with permission, I'll bring up Mr. Higgins. Thank you
All right. Thank you.
very much. So I think this is Mr. Higgins' first night of testifying, so I think we have to all be.
Mr. Higgins, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
James W. Higgins, Higgins. I am a licensed planner in the state. I've been licensed for approximately 45 years. And my license is still in good standing.
And I never let Mr. Higgins stand before a board without embarrassing him, but he is the only planner that I have ever met who's named in a Supreme Court decision by our Supreme Court with the introduction of the court recognizes Mr. James W. Higgins an exceptional planner in the state of New Jersey. So in a published Supreme Court decision.
They based their decision on my testimony, so they had to say that.
Mr. Higgins, if you could just give the board a brief idea of what you did to prepare for this evening. Take us through it, please.
I looked at the site, I looked at the plans, I read the expert reports. I basically then developed, I looked at your ordinance also, and I developed an outline of testimony. And I think it's really very basic. There are two variances necessary. The first of those is the encroachment into the buffer area, as Mr. French described. And And quite frankly, when you look at the ordinance and the intent of the ordinance with regard to a buffer is to protect adjacent residential properties where you have an industrial use adjacent to a residential use. Here you have an industrial use that's adjacent to a railroad, and then you have topographical changes so that while this building is about 27 feet high, as I recall, it's being testified to earlier, the elevation difference between the building and the railroad is 13 feet. So effectively, looking at it from the railroad, it's 14 feet high, and then the elevation goes up farther. So it's not visible even without extensive buffering that exists on the railroad property and on the other side of the railroad property. It's really not visible from adjacent properties. And the addition of the double row of evergreen trees will in fact improve that condition very much. And this building is necessary for this applicant to basically function in a way that is appropriate. Right now, it has been determined by your municipal officials that the painting process is not really an appropriate use, not appropriately done. And this is going to be a state-of-the-art building, and it's going to be completely enclosed so that it will function much, much better. So I think that in itself is a positive reason for the granting of the variance. And quite frankly, it is a technical variance, as Mr. French said. It's really not, the intent of the ordinance is to protect residential properties when the industrial use is directly adjacent to the residential property. And here you have 100 feet between this property and the nearest residential property. So I think that variance can be granted. The other variance is the separation of the two buildings. And there's a 5-foot separation. It would be possible to move the building back. I don't see any point to it. The other thing that Mike and I discussed earlier today is whether or not the two buildings could be put together and just to make one building, but that creates problems in terms of the foundation for the paint building. So it's better to have it a distance away, and I don't think it really needs to be 10 feet away. It's not like people are going to be walking in between the buildings constantly, and they're not huge industrial buildings, so that I don't think there's any substantial detriment to the granting of that variance. And I think there's a minor advantage in that it doesn't encroach as far into the buffer area as it would be if it were 10 feet apart. So when I look at those, I think clearly there are positive reasons for the granting of the variances, and I don't see any substantial negative impact.
Want to add one thing and then ask. So we were asked if there were other approvals required from other agencies for the operation of a paint booth. And we did 3 things. I've done a number of paint booths for auto body shops, and I went over them, and we had no requirement of securing any other approvals other than the approvals from the building department. That's one. Second, our client made a similar inquiry and learned the same thing. And Mr. French reached out to the manufacturer of the paint booth, who advised him that their experience was no further permitting. But for the record, we state that if there's any further permitting that's required, whether it's DEP or any other agency, we will accept that as a condition of approval, and we know that it will be enforced by your construction office. But with knowing that the applicant is making the representation that any and all permits required for this building to be constructed will be a condition of approval, does that reinforce your conclusion that there's no negative impacts from this building?
Yes, it does.
Mr. Chair, board members, I have nothing further of Mr. Higgins, and he's now available to the board and professionals for examination. Thank you.
Any questions?
So, Mr. Chair, if you wish to open to the public any examination of the witnesses, and at the conclusion, we'll ask for a brief summation opportunity.
Any motion open to the public? Second.
You have to come up to the mic.
Hello,
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good.
Will you please state your name?
Yes, Sheila Bennett. I am a current homeowner from a community called the Colony Club. And I currently live on Hendricks Court, 14 Hendricks Court. And I'm here tonight because I did receive a certified letter, apparently from the attorney's office, about the intentions of what they want to build this paint booth. And I had to come tonight because I have concerns about it. And I really don't, I'm not in agreement for an additional warehouse or building to be built in close proximity to where I live. Okay. The reason why I say this is because over the years, during the day of operation, and recently within the last couple of years, I've had problems with noise. And I did decide to contact City Hall here, and I have had phone conversations with the zoning officer, Mr. Andy Marsanki. I believe I might be mispronouncing his name. I'm sorry if I am. And I addressed my concerns with him because I found recently during the wee hours of the morning, late at night, when I was asleep, I was awakened by noise. And the type of noise I was hearing, like machinery running, trucks idling. And I'm not saying for 10 minutes, I'm talking about hour on hour. Apparently sounds of like they were unloading and loading equipment off the truck, because I could hear like the objects hitting the ground, like from a heavy impact. Clashing and clanging of metal. And it was an increase of noise. And I'm talking about 1 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m., 4 and 5 a.m. Now I was told by, I'm just going to call him Mr. Andy, that they were allowed to operate, and it is APE, because initially he wasn't aware of the company until he did his further investigation, and I didn't know. But apparently it was APE. And he said they were allowed to operate between 7 and 10 p.m. at night. But I found these noises going on even well after 10 p.m. at night. And I used to call him quite often. He made phone calls. He spoke to the owner or manager and told him of my concerns. He said that he would stop going beyond the time limit, et cetera, et cetera. But in actuality, it didn't stop. It kept going on and on and on. So Mr. Andy at one point came over and did his own investigation. And he claims he concluded that he said he didn't find any real increase of noise. But my thing is with that, whether you randomly come on a Friday or a Monday, at the time you may come, it may have not at that point been any noise, because this noise is constantly at any given time during the day and night. I did say that. So at the time he came, it may have been minimal, but he concluded there was not enough noise decibels to impose a fine. Because I can tell you, I was really trying to push for them to be fined, because it's affecting my livelihood. I have to live there. I'm on Hendricks Court, the fence is there, the railroad track is there, and the warehouses are right on the other side of the railroad track. I have them to my right and maybe adjacent in front of me. And I can say since I moved there, maybe one warehouse was there in that area. Now they've doubled. Okay, I have like 3 warehouses within a certain perimeter over that railroad track and over that fence. So now if this one is built, this is going to be like the 4th building. And I really objected, because again, it's affecting my livelihood. I've been working for years, and I feel like when I go to bed and try to get a night's sleep, I should be able to sleep. And this is with my window open and closed. I can hear the noise. My question is to them, they're talking about an installed fence and what is the fence gonna do to help my situation? Is the fence gonna be put up? Is it gonna block off the noise? Okay. All right, so that's not gonna make my situation any better. And in regard to the paint booth, you're saying it's another building, but in terms of, I just initially think health issues, environmental concerns. What kind of paint is this? I don't know. But all I know is I'm directly on the other side, and the railroad unfortunately comes through there when it gets ready. Sometimes it's 12, 1 o'clock at night. I have no control over, unfortunately, the railroad. I have to deal with that. But I'm just saying, I'm getting noise from all directions. And I don't feel it's fair to me. The gentleman said that they AP have been there, what, for 20 years? Well, I've almost been where I'm living for almost 30. I didn't just come move here to Sayreville in the last 5 years. I've been there for a long time. And I have seen the area and the neighborhood change. And I know what it was before and now what it is. So I really would appreciate if the planning board would take this into heavy consideration. Because I moved to Sayreville to have a better life, to have some peace and quiet. And I know that can't be 100%, but realistically, I didn't anticipate that I would be confronted with this noise situation the way I'm being confronted. Because if that was the case, I could have stayed within the inner city. I came from New York and I lived in the Bronx. And I was surrounded by noise all the time. So I wanted to move somewhere where, you know, I could live a little peaceful and easier.
I would suggest, though, if you do have noise complaints, and if there's people who are operating businesses past business hours, that you contact code enforcement. That's not necessarily the board's purview, but you should certainly reach out to code enforcement.
Who's a
Yeah, it's Andy. So that's the person you've been in contact with, but if it keeps happening, you should contact them
Well,
again.
it has, and I have to tell you, at some point I became frustrated because I just feel like he really didn't understand my situation thoroughly. And I called him constantly. But
Understood.
you can't take a situation by you coming one day this week and the next month you come and make a conclusion that is non-existent. Because it does exist. And I live there and I'm right there where it's happening. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
I did not want to interrupt this president, but I would like to share it with you. Mr. Mashansky has been in contact with our clients. He has, I'm going to say, made it very, very clear what the hours of operation are. There were violations earlier. Those violations, it's my understanding, stopped completely. The 7 a.m. rule is known to our clients. Second is the paint activity that we're talking about is the same paint activity that has taken place for the past 18 years. There's no change. And your applicant's expression of accepting a condition of any and all additional permits, I think should quiet that issue. And for what it's worth, and not discounting any of the comments of our neighbor, but for what it's worth, this is a completely enclosed building. Activity that takes place in the building is with the building doors closed. There's no noise that will be emanating from this building that's perceivable. So the business activity that is there, that is the approved business activity, continues, and it is handling heavy equipment outdoors. There's sounds associated with that. That will continue. But in conclusion, our clients acknowledge the limits of operation hours. Our clients acknowledge the responsibility of having the building fully permitted before it's placed in operation. And what we're talking about is not a change in the business activity that's on site.
Well, he was speaking to directly to the public. Is that your closing as well?
Take a motion to close to the public.
Motion closed.
Very simply, Mr. Chairman and board members, this is a successful business that has enjoyed being a part of the Sayreville community. Each time we come before you, it's involved with their growth. This is one more of those steps. I think that it's worth noting how they address in a positive manner by offering the fencing and landscaping as an element of their presentation. And I'd ask that the board consider this really favorably. So, thank you.
Good.
Pleasure.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Favor?
Roll call. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Blumer? Mr. Mueller? Yes. Mr. Pulowski? Chairman Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you all.
Congratulations. Here,
Thank you.
see you later, Joe. Yeah. Oh, Jim Hagan, so. And Ken.
So next on the agenda, Commercial Metals Company Site Plan, 1 North Crossman Road, Sayreville, New Jersey, Block 246, lots 1.05, 1.06, 1.07, and 1.08.
Ready for me?
How are you?
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Michael LaParry. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Mandelbaum Barrett. The public notice said LaParry Mandelbaum Barrett. I like that a little bit better. I'm going to suggest that to my partners tomorrow morning, but it's Mandelbaum Barrett. I am the attorney for the applicant, Commercial Metals Company. They are an existing steel mill facility located on North Crossman Road. This is an application for a minor site plan in order to allow the applicant to construct a new exit to their existing facility. The lot is located in the industrial zone, and it's, like I said, at the end of North Crossman Road, which is a private road. We're not seeking any variances as part of this application. And the gist of the application is that we are trying to create an internal loop instead of an internal dead end. So this was going to do nothing but doing nothing but improve the internal circulation within the facility. There will be, as a result of this application, no additional truck traffic, no additional or expansion of operations. It's essentially, and we'll explain it to you shortly, like I said, it allows for an internal loop rather than having all the trucks reach a dead end and have to back up. It just improves the safety and the internal circulation on the site. I have 2 witnesses with me this evening. Mason Compton, he is the engineering manager at CMC, and Jennifer DiPilato, she's a professional engineer with Brown and Caldwell. We'll get to my first witness if that's okay with the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just for cleanup, I have reviewed the notice package and everything appears to be in order.
Thank you. My first witness is Mason Compton. Mason, if you come up, please allow the board to swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Mason Compton, Compton.
Thank you. Mr. Compton, can you tell the board what your position is with Commercial Metals Company?
I'm the engineering manager,
And how long have you been with the company?
5 years.
And are you basically supervising, I guess, this proposed
Yes, I'm the project manager.
project manager. Thank you. If you could you please take the board through, I'm gonna show you what we have as.
This is
Which one?
current.
Is the first
This
one
is current,
current?
yeah.
So we have.
I've been looking at the site.
Oh.
Just we have to show it for everybody.
Is this okay for everyone?
I don't think
Why don't you
that.
just come sit there?
That's
There
true.
we go.
I was thinking that, Barry. I was
Yeah,
like,
I
you
was
probably haven't
wondering
seen
if
anything.
Huh?
Is that-
Mike, was this a submitted with the
Resolve
package?
that problem?
No,
It was not, okay,
so
so,
we're gonna mark it and I'll identify it, yes.
Very decisive.
so mark that as
I'm a problem
A1.
solver.
Yes.
Problem solved.
So I have, what we're gonna mark here is A1, and today is 9/21, 22. And this is just a diagram that Mr. Compton has prepared in order to assist his testimony. I think the visual aid will really give a good understanding of what we're seeking here. Mr. Compton, if you could please just explain to the board, this is the existing traffic flow on the site?
Correct. This is currently how trucks have to come in through our site. We have essentially two types of trucks. Trucks coming empty, coming to pick up finished product. I have those designated in red. And then delivery trucks bringing scrap or processed materials, et cetera. I have designated in green. Currently, all truck traffic has to come all the way up Crossman Road, come around inside the facility through our entrance here. Finished product trucks all have to come down into this location to get loaded up. Scrap trucks end up going into our scrap yard. And then other process material deliveries that come in through into our warehouse area. Currently, right now, trucks that come to pick up finished product do have to actually turn around and reverse in this location so that they are then able to pull back out and exit the facility. It's not ideal, but there is no exit on the south end for them to be able to pull through.
Okay, I think it's, that, that's pretty clear that they have, you have internal, I guess, employees that help direct them and stop the trucks.
Yeah, so we have a guard on site that monitors the traffic coming in, designates when trucks can come in, et cetera. However, the employees that load down here, once they're loaded up, will let the trucks flow back towards the north. However, that can cause a bit of a traffic jam if there's another truck coming in that was just let in by the guard to get loaded up. So we do have employees that work in this area directing traffic a bit. It's not their primary responsibility, but it is something they do.
Okay, and just so we're clear, this aerial map you pulled yourself from Google Maps?
Correct.
Okay, and it's an aerial depiction of your site?
Yeah, it's not the entire site, but it's the main bulk of the site.
Okay. And now you prepared another exhibit.
Yeah.
And I'll mark this as A2 for identification. And is this, I guess, the same aerial photograph?
It is.
And this is the proposed new traffic flow if we were to get approval to have the installation of the new exit?
Correct. So according to the prints that we had prepared, we were looking to put the new exit down in this southern corner down here. That would allow all our finished product trucks to pull in, continue to pull straight down, get loaded up, and then continue through and down and onto Crossman Road and off the site. All of the scrap and process material deliveries do have to still come into the same area and do still have to leave the same area. They would not be diverted down the new exit. We do have a scale here that needs to measure the scrap trucks when they weigh in and then when they weigh out to make sure that we have the right scrap weight that we're getting. So the entrance is not actually being converted to a one-way entrance. It is still going to be an entrance and an exit. Only the new exit that we put in will be a one-way only exit. We will not allow traffic to come in through that exit.
Yeah, and I believe there may have been some confusion in our plans. I'm not sure where it was, but I know some of the review letters indicated that it would be the existing entrance would be converted to one way. It'll continue to be an entrance and an exit. We're just adding the extra exit, which will be the one way out. Mr. Compton, do you believe that this will be a significant improvement to the internal safety of the site?
We do. Without a lot of trucks turning around, backing down, down the side of our building. We think that it's going to increase safety, visibility. Truck drivers will be able to see clearly where they're going, where they need to stop, where they're loading, et cetera.
I don't have any more testimony from Mr. Compton. If the board or professionals have any questions, he's available to answer. And he'll be available too at the end.
There are a number of trucks on the street when I visited the site.
Mhm.
Seemed like there was some kind of waiting pattern. I don't know if they were waiting to offload or load. So once you have this new arrangement where trucks can come in, they can just pull forward, the other trucks can stack behind them, so it's not gonna have to back up. Is that gonna relieve some of that traffic that's on the street? Trucks that seem to be just kind of idling, waiting to get on site?
That is the hope. Yeah. That is the hope, that by allowing trucks to not have to come back down around the other side of the roadway, it'll just facilitate much better circulation through and off the site. We think that a lot of times some of the trucks end up getting stuck because you end up having trucks coming down, trucks coming up, other trucks waiting to get let into the site, et cetera. So the part of the main point, other than the safety and improved circulation flow, is to improve the actual Crossman Road conditions.
And currently you have everything looks pretty tight, between the building and the storage areas that are on the site, but you currently do have the driveway area or width for a truck to be able to maneuver all the way around to get back out of the site, or do you have to move other things around in order to facilitate that?
No. Other than constructing the new exit to facilitate
Right.
that, there is no work that's going to be needed to done along this entire length until we get down to here.
And the attorney had mentioned about the driveway, both driveways remain a two-way at the end of the site. And I guess either I had read it somewhere or saw it on a plan that one was going to be changed just entrance only. But if you have two driveways down the other end of the site, wouldn't it help to have one driveway be an entrance only, so the trucks are just going in, not have to worry about somebody else coming out at the same time?
So the entrance down here will need to continue to operate as an exit because it contains our scale.
Okay.
And we have to measure trucks as they come in and come out. So we could not make that an entrance only. That would have to continue to be an.
And bringing them all the way down to the driveway that's at the end of the site, that would be too far out of the way to have them exit down at that location. Aren't there two driveways on that end?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your
Aren't
question.
there two driveways down on the end of the site with the parking lot?
Down here or down here?
Where the parking lot is on the,
Down here, yeah, there's not two entrances. There's one entrance and it facilitates as an entrance. and
okay, I
exit.
thought there
It
were
is-
two
it is
separate
wide enough.
driveways down there. There's just one?
Just the one, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just one last question, because I said it and I think it would be better coming from you, Mason. This will not, lead to any increased truck traffic
Correct.
or any expansion of operations.
Correct. This is not an expansion of operations. It's not an expansion of any additional finished product being sold or anything like that. It's purely for traffic circulation.
The new finished product lane, that's not, the exit is one way out, right?
Correct.
There's no entrance. That's
Correct.
just clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I think some of the confusion came from, is this is going to be an exit only. Okay, but this will continue to operate as an entrance and an exit.
What's the hours of operation?
It's a 24/7.
How many years have you operated like that?
Forever?
My question is, what took you so long to do
Yeah.
this?
I knew it coming, yeah. Agreed.
How are you gonna say in operation?
We would, if it gets approved, we would be able to continue to operate as is until this gets constructed.
Yeah.
This is not currently in the way of any of our operations.
I think when we bring up Mrs. DiPilato, she'll show you the actual area of disturbance is very minimal. It's really just lopping off a strip of that grass right there and paving over for the most part. Well, that's how I view it, because I'm not the engineer, but that's how I see it. I'm sure she'll say a little more technical or a little more savvy than I said it. but
Great job.
Thank you, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, I just want to clear something up in my brain, like North Crossman Road is a private road, okay? But you allow access to that strip mall, all right, where the Quick Check is,
Mhm.
right?
So
Is there,
I will clarify, we do not own North Crossman Road. It is a private road and we do not own, we have a maintenance easement on it.
They have an
Okay.
access, an access easement to travel across it. And it's also, as part of the easement, it's open to the public and any of the businesses that are on.
Okay.
across the-
And who's responsible for the maintenance of that?
According to the easement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. My next witness is Jennifer DiPilato. She's a professional engineer with Brown and Caldwell. Ms. DiPilato, if you can come up, give me this microphone. Get this, state and spell your last name and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Jennifer DiPilato, Dipilato.
Can you please provide your qualifications for the board?
I'm a professional engineer with Brown and Caldwell, and I'm the project manager for this, for CNC.
How long have you been an engineer?
For over 20 years.
Okay, and your license is current in the state of New Jersey?
I have a license in the state of New York, but the professional engineers, we have a license, the engineers who worked on this design are licensed in New Jersey.
Okay, she's just the, she's the spokesperson for us.
Yeah.
Mrs. DiPilato, if you could please just, provide the board with this a quick overview of some of the site details and I'll let you really just walk through it. I know it's not much, but just a little overview of what we're trying to do with the project.
Yes, absolutely. So the new exit, it will be right here is North Crossman. I don't know if you're able to see that well. There's the asphalt pavement here. The CMC pavement site continues here. So it's just an extension of a new asphalt pavement right around here for the new exit. There's currently a fence line all along here. That fence will be replaced, removed and replaced with a mechanical gate that will be operated by a gatehouse within the interior of the facility. The increase in impervious surface is 0.1% on lot 1.05 only. So it's very minimal amount of increase of pavement. And there is a tree line here. Those trees will be removed. We estimate about 28 trees between 6 and 16-inch diameter breast height. Those will be removed. We are proposing to plant 20 evergreens, pines and spruces to replace those with a berm to the north of the new exit. So there will be a berm to the north and more trees to the south. And that's what we have on our design. We recognize the comment to add a berm to the south. So I should clarify if it didn't make it clear already. North is this way, to the right of the paper. There was a comment to add a berm to the south of the new exit, which we can do to the extent possible. The intent was any soil that was going to be removed was going to be used on site, minimize any type of material that has to be removed. We had proposed a berm for that reason to the north, but we can also accommodate if we have adequate material to reuse, spread that to the south. And there was one other change that we wanted to make on the design. It's a minor change. Our design shows the gate is and the fencing is 6-inch in height. We've changed that to 8-inch to match the current conditions. So we will make that correction in the final.
8 feet.
What did I say?
You said inch.
8
8
feet.
That's a tiny fence.
Okay, that's 8 feet to, and we'll make that.
Yeah.
So we will make that change in the final plans.
Right, yeah, I think there was 2 spots where it was just inconsistent and the existing fence is 8 feet, is that correct?
Yes, thank
And we're
you.
going to install the 8-foot fence and to match the existing fence. So there won't be any real
It's
change.
only at the new road, the new exit, but not on the other section, correct? There's no proposed changes at the other entrance.
Correct. The work is just in this area.
So, and again, with regard to the comments of, I think it was Mr. Fowler with regard to the landscape, we're going to make some, changes to accommodate some of the suggestions that you had indicated. If necessary, we can provide it to you in advance to see if it meets your satisfaction, but we will increase the berm as you recommended. And I think that was really the biggest issue that you had raised on that. Unless the board wants us to continue, again, this is a very minor application. I know the Yankee game is on and Judge is chasing history, and some of you guys are going to want to get home. So I'm trying my best to keep it short so we could see a ninth inning like last night maybe, and all get to enjoy it.
Does anybody have any questions?
My report, there were a couple times that had to do with compliance with the tree ordinance. You plan to submit this in
Yeah, so I think the issue was, we can't replace them all, so there might have to be a contribution of $250 per tree. And we will make sure that we comply with the ordinance if there needs to be some, if we have to pay the fee.
Correct, but also evergreen trees, 50 wildfires. Wide range caliber evergreens, then you're okay.
We will take a look at the plan and we will make sure that we either revise it if necessary, or either way, we're going to comply. Yes, but thank you for pointing that out.
You'll comply with any other conditions as set forth in their reports?
Yes, I don't believe there were any other, I don't believe there were any other conditions in the reports. So I think we can comply with everything. There were some suggestions as to landscaping. We will comply with that. Certainly. So the answer is yes.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns? Right?
Motion open.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone from the public?
Motion to close.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Yes, I'll just keep it brief, just like the intro. And again, this is an existing steel mill facility. The application is a minor site plan, no variances. All we're asking for is approval to improve an existing circulation issue that's been there for many years. We think it's a safety impact that will be very positive to the surrounding street and I guess neighbors to the extent there are any. And we just asked the board to approve this application. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Mark? Yep. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Blamar? Mr. Mueller? Ms. Pulowski? Chairman Davis?
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Oh, gosh, thank you so much. Thank you. Old business, new business, administrative matters, next meeting, October 5th.
Proposed for that evening. It's an application that was approved a number of years ago. The applicant never filed a deed or a map for the subdivision, so he's basically looking to come back in, just get an amended approval to allow him to do that.
Just making sure. Thank you.
No.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Have a great night, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.